I guess I'm recording, and then I will come back to you. All right. All right, so I will share my screen and try to bring up where we were. Move this over. Okay, cool. So we were working on spam prevention, and so the feedback on this spam prevention was that we wanted to potentially move some of these questions that we had up, right, and out. So that was over here. Okay. How do I? This is like complex, but okay. So two things we had to move out. The first thing was during group creation, the user ought to consider segmenting large groups. 2, during group creation, we can collect that the user either knows the recipients he selected or warn against.
There is also an issue with this approach, because when you then, let's say, edit this group, add some contacts, for example, some new contacts, then this consent wouldn't be valid anymore. So it's like requires it additional asking again or something like this. So also requires to detect when we are adding new people to the group, and those people could be potentially added from the phone and synced to the app. So yeah, some edge cases. And yeah, like in general, if this group is not formed and composed in the app itself, but synced from the server or synced from the phone contacts app, then we need some, I don't know, some point where we're going to ask about this.
So, okay, to answer the questions, I would, off the top of my head, so this is without deep thinking, I could say, like, for this, it makes sense to check on the group open what's changed. And so you might have the state, but you maybe create a requirement when the group is opened, group opens for the first time since change occurred. To check for those contacts. But this is quite a significant undertaking of architecture.
Yeah.
Um,
This, yeah.
it doesn't mean that we can't compromise at first. Um, so just because we ask doesn't mean that we have to cover all cases. But if we know the cases that we don't cover, then we can create a roadmap that acknowledges the shortcomings, and what we want to work on next.
Yeah, potentially, but at least those cases or all the cases should be listed somehow. For example, also it's about the company groups that comes from the dashboard.
Company groups.
They can't be edited in any sense, so they are like read only on the upside currently. So you can only send the message to the group and you can't do nothing more about it.
We're talking about CSVs, right?
Yeah. Basically all the groups that comes from your company ID, like that attached to your company ID and managed from the dashboard. I'm not sure. There probably is an option only to add it like CSV, yeah.
So it requires some updates to the CSV importing.
I'm sure it requires updates. Maybe this should be managed. Like the logic for company groups was that user can't do anything for the like with the company group. It's like formed by company manager or admin or whatever, and the user can only use this group as it is, and he can't do anything more, like change something, delete someone, or add someone. The same logic should be applied, I guess, to the number of people and consent and all these things. So it should be managed from the dashboard side as well.
Right. So it's a pretty big undertaking.
Yeah, this group like management is totally separate things, and like the number of people and the consent. We kind of have consent confirmation only for CSV import. When you import CSV from the upside, the pop-up appears when you need to put all those check marks that you know the people, that you have consent to tag them. So something like this. It's kind of implemented, but only for the CSV groups and only on the upside. Not sure even if we have the same for the dashboard when you import CSV and dashboard side.
Don't you think it makes more sense to more tightly couple the question to the consequence of the action the user wants to do? So like the user wants to send a message, but when the user is creating a group, they haven't started the process of writing a message yet. And so like you're already assuming that, well, firstly, like, is consent for one type of message consent for another type? For instance, if I like get consent from you to invite you to my church, is it the same as marketing my skincare products to you? It's like a different consent, right?
Yeah, for sure. But in this case, we would need to ask for consent for each separate message.
Kind of.
We don't do. And not sure if we plan to do that ever.
No, but we might want to um, associate the question with um, associating the fact that if I send you a message, that you should want to receive that message. You know, that's like the goal, right? So if you don't want to receive my message, it really doesn't matter what consent I have, you know? Like if you mark me as spam, you mark me as spam. It really doesn't matter if I think I have your consent, you know? What matters is, does this person really want to receive a message from me?
Yeah, but then what does the consent mean?
Well, I think people think that they have permission to do things more often than they actually have the desire, like the person desiring that they do it, you know? It's like a difference. Like, let's say I maybe have permission to go to Poltava and come to your house and knock on the door, right? Like, it doesn't mean necessarily that you want me to do that. You know what I mean? Like, so if
No, but
you might still call the
if you
police, you still might call the police when I'm like, hey, Evgenia, I'm here. It's like you're not gonna.
no
It's not that you know what I mean?
not exactly, because like the consent means that you at some point texted me or like called me and asked,
Right.
okay, Jenya, don't you mind if I come at this like day at this
The
time?
problem,
And I gave
well, that's the
you
problem
this
is like
consent, so
this day
said
and this
yes.
time, this day and this time is kind of the thing. Cause like,
Or maybe no, if we are comparing to the message sending, so in this case I would compare it like this. So you called me once or texted me once and asked, do you mind if I like if I have an um,
if I text you
opportunity
sometime,
to mention, yeah, if I text you sometime or if I come to your house sometime, like and I said yes, of course, okay. And this means my consent to like to
right?
some
And then
period.
I wait 3 months, and then out of nowhere, I just come to your house at maybe midnight, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah, but
remember?
I gave that. Yeah, but I gave that consent,
Right,
and
but
I
you're
said,
like,
okay, yeah, I'm not mind.
what the f is this? Okay, like, please leave my front yard. You're scaring my cat,
Yeah, but
you know?
legally,
But it's
you
not
asked.
about legality. It's about like, will you click the report spam button or not? This is the problem. Because if you click report spam,
Probably not, because no, probably in this case not, because you asked once,
but you don't
like, don't you?
remember, you know, because it was like months ago, and
Is my problem that I don't remember,
but it's
but
your problem. But
you
you're
remember.
still gonna call the police when I'm like knocking on the door because you're like, who's this guy? You know, I forgot. So this is what's happening though. Like this is the reality. Um, just a sec.
I'm not sure if I'm going to send some messages and I'm asking a person, don't you mind if I will send you some messages uh, regarding, I don't know, my business or whatever? And he says yes, then I assume that I have consent to send messages like, I don't know, once a
That's
week or once a month or what we agreed about.
the reality is that people think that they have consent, but they really don't have it, or that they have it, but it was implicitly revoked or removed because they just forgot that they gave it, and therefore they don't know who the person is anymore. Because okay, like maybe I get a big sign up list at an event, and they all sign up, and I wait a month before I text everybody. By the time I send you the text message, you totally forgot who you gave the number to. You
Yeah,
have
but that's my
kids, you've got like
problem.
a it's well, no, because it might be your problem, but it becomes
Why
my
not?
problem when you're like, who the hell's this? Report spam next. And if you click
Um,
report spam, then I have a problem because my cell phone will get turned off And I can't just say, hey, Jenya, like unblock me because it was a mistake on your part. Like
But
you've already.
how can you know if I remember or I do not remember? If I really gave my phone number to you and said, I don't mind that you text me sometime, and then I forgot, okay, I forgot in months or 2 months, but that's my problem. You still
But
have
I
my
should.
number, you still have my consent. So,
But as the sender, I should know, like reasonably, what my relationship status is with you over time. You know, like it's my obligation to be considerate of the fact that, oh, maybe she forgot who I am, or these people forgot who I am. So like it's up to me to properly mitigate that risk. You know, if I'm sending.
I don't know, not sure.
I mean,
I
it's
wouldn't
reality.
expect
It's
that.
it's it's not about like not sure or like you don't feel like it's right. It's not about fairness. I think you're like trying to look at this from a legal perspective of like
Yeah, kind
is
of.
is this legally okay? And the answer is yeah, it's totally legally fine. But the law uh, doesn't matter. It's the intention of the law, you know? And if the intention of the law is violated, which is to prevent unwanted messages, unwanted is a subjective state, right? Like your desire to hear from me changes with the wind. Maybe today we have a fight and you don't want to hear from me anymore, and now it's unwanted.
Yeah,
So
then there should be another solution for that case. There should be an option to unsubscribe, and that's it. Like if you once received a message, if I once received a message from you, but something changed and I don't want it anymore. So there should be an explicit option to sign out, like to remove my phone number from that list, and that's it.
So let's go
Like that
through
is
all
not
the
the
cases that
problem.
can happen. Like the best case is what you're saying, which is that firstly we'd have to create a platform, which is maybe doable, but we should create a platform where the recipient can sign up to receive messages explicitly. This is the goal. So we need a website for every user that they can have their own landing page where somebody can give them their contact, you know, and through that contact sign up, they opt in, and then through that same link, they can opt out right from the first message. This is ideal, and then we have less ideal situations, which are like I met you at a party and I got your contact info and I sent a message. This is another case where I either send you a message right away because I'm diligent and I introduce myself so you remember who I am, or I don't necessarily remind you immediately. Like I just got your contact and then I text you in a week. This is possible too. And then in a week, you're like, oh, I don't know if I remember this guy. And I may or may not be smart enough to remember to reintroduce myself over the text message. Hey, this is Zach. We met at this place at this time. If to refresh your memory. So I might fail to do what's required to have a normal social interaction with another person, right? Which is to reasonably remind you that you wanted to hear from me again, you know? So I could fail at this, and if I fail at this at scale, then I've lost access to my iMessage, because if enough people don't think that they want to hear from me, regardless of whether or not they previously said they would, or I even have it written down that they said that they would, um, I have a problem either way. So like you block me and three people block me and then Apple turns off my iMessage. It doesn't matter that it's not illegal. What matters is that I can't send texts anymore. So I have an obligation to be smart about what I do. I have an obligation to first introduce myself as quickly as possible over the medium, and
But
two,
that doesn't guarantee you that I won't block your spam.
the biggest guarantee the biggest guarantee technically is if you replied to me as quickly as possible, this button which says report junk or spam disappears. So the biggest risk is mitigated when we have a two-way conversation quickly. So if I say, hey, text me back, and you say, hey, nice to meet you, and I say, hi, nice to meet you too, boom, we've now solidified a relationship over the medium. And Apple,
Yeah, but that's not your case, I guess.
it reduces the risk of somebody clicking the button report junk a lot because it's gone. When you send a reply back, the report junk option disappears from the screen. So
Yeah.
this protects the user even if they mess up and send a message that later you didn't want to receive. This is still much better because you've already kind of started a conversation. So you don't, as a recipient, have a right to choose what I send to you, but you do have a right to not be sent anything from somebody you don't want to hear from. So this is the kind of thing. Like, you can't control what I say to you, but you can and should be able to disallow people you don't know or you don't think you know from bothering you. And so that's the design that Apple takes.
I don't know. I think we are making it too complicated. If we want to really make it right, this is all about the stuff that we were discussing some time ago, like that 10 DLC or whatever. Like where there are strict rules about collecting consent, where there are like some limitations and other stuff. Because currently it seems like we are trying to make something like that, but without really using that functionality. So we're trying to make this too complicated without using actual rules and actual like legal requirements.
Okay, so look, we have two issues, right? We have, let's say, the law, right? This is like a brick wall, you know? We call this the law. And this is, then we have on the other side of the law is designed like a wall to protect customers, so recipients. Call this a little recipient from receiving. It's to block recipients from receiving messages to prevent users from receiving messages from people that they don't want. But separately from this, we have our users who may or may not know anything about the law. And even if they know about the law, they often don't fall under a category that the law applies to directly. So we have our users, and they have what's called an intention, and they want to send their message to this recipient. And so the law covers like some aspect of it, but then separately from the law is the spam prevention, you know? And this is operating independently of the law. And it's looking at behavior, you know? So this is more like a type of filter that's designed to prevent unwanted messages from going through. So this is the reality of what is blocking the user. And regardless of the law, this is like the mechanism which prevents messages from getting through. And this is the thing which we care about because, well, the law is important too, but our customers are small enough that the law is designed to prevent abuse. And our customers are not trying to abuse anybody. They're trying to do what they think is right. And to some degree, in many cases, they don't really have a legal issue. They have a an appearance that they might have a legal issue based on their behavior, which is not 100% one for one the same. And separately from the law is compliance. And that probably goes similar to this. Like this is CTIA guidelines. And the guidelines dictate how the filters work, you know. So so the first step, you know, it's very rare that the law informs the industry, because the industry in America at least self-regulates. So mostly the guidelines and the industry itself decide what go into filtering spam. And very rarely does the law get involved for small time people who are just trying to do business in America or whatever, or whatnot. They're just going to get blocked, you know, by the filter. And so our goal is that we want our users' messages to reach the recipient to the best of our ability. And to do that, we have to realize that the recipient informs the spam filter. Like if a couple people receive a message that they didn't want, and they tell the spam filter, like Apple, for instance, that they didn't want to receive that message, then even if it's legitimate and they have a legal right, it really doesn't even matter what their legal rights are, because the law wasn't the thing that was the bottleneck. It was the filter.
Yeah, but I mean, like in this case, like if we care about some real filters, but no, not law,
We care
it's
about
okay.
both.
But
We care about both, right? But like they're different
yeah,
problems. They're completely separated, you know, because like right now the users who are having trouble with us are simply like, actually they're not in violation of the law for the most part. Like I haven't seen any major violations of law. What I have seen is that they behave in a way that is not conducive to getting their messages past the filter appropriately, because they're not following best practices, which is not the same thing, you know. So like ideally in P2P messaging, the user is speaking both to the recipient, and the recipient is speaking back to the user in a conversational tone. And if they're not engaged in this kind of consensual two-way communication, then they increase the likelihood of spam. But this is not something that's very easy to technically mitigate, you know? This is like, so this requires some careful thought, and that requires us to properly chart out user stories to understand where we have legitimate users, like many of them, who have a story that ends them up potentially going into the spam filter, when we really want them to stay below the spam filter and engaging properly. So we have to know, like, what is the user's intention? Where did they meet these people? And really, the user could, theoretically, with enough information, determine for themselves how they anticipate this recipient from behaving. So the number one factor is, like, if they click report junk, this is a huge problem for the user. And so the user should reasonably understand that they are talking to people who will not click that button. And it really doesn't matter what the law says, and it really doesn't matter what the filter is looking for. What really matters is that people want to receive their message actively. This is like an intention. So the intention for the user is that they want to send their message, and the intention must also be from the recipient that they want to receive the message. They want it. That's what matters. Because if they want it, then it doesn't matter if it's a business text or whatever text. What matters is that the recipient really does want to hear from this person and is ready to. So this is what this user must know, that this is a requirement. That
I mean, we can only explain that this is needed, and we can only we can only ask the user if they really want this message, and we can only believe if they say they want my message.
For sure. But we should somehow in our design bake in what it means to want the message. We need them to understand what wanting something means.
So this is all about explaining the rule and
I don't know,
collecting and consent.
It's about increased empathy. Typically, the user doesn't have any empathy for the people that they're texting. Most people don't have enough empathy in general. This is like a human problem. But the issue is that, it's the violation of another person's desires for the benefit of my own, that I don't care if Jenya really wants me to come to her house. I'm going to go anyway, and I'm not really thinking does she have other stuff? Is she spending time with her husband? Does she, is there something she's doing with her cat today? It's that I need a place to sleep tonight and I'm going to go to Poltava. I'm going to just knock on her door and I don't care what she thinks. So this mentality and the text messaging space need this understanding that that's an appropriate behavior in real life, right? Also needs to be translated to the text messaging space where people are not connecting. That actually, my phone is my mental playground, and if you interrupt me in my mental playground, I might not like it. And if I don't like it, you have a problem because you can't control what I do. You can't control that I'm going to block you, right? So this is the reality, and our design has to make the consequences more real on that front, in my opinion. So that's my opinion, right?
Yeah, so that's about the right explanation, and we need to explain this at the right point as well. So that was basically the Gertz and Roger's idea that not the best time to explain some of those things or even all of those things is not when the user is pressing send button, but in some previous steps, maybe to split those explanations in several steps, to show the warning about the group size at correct point and to show the spam words at correct point once the user is typing or
okay, but I get the point, but the question I have in response to that is when you come to visit me in Switzerland, let's say, if I'm in Switzerland, your first intention is you personally want to go to Switzerland. And then you think about oh, do I know anybody there who maybe I can stay in a spare bedroom or something, right? The intention starts with wanting to go to Switzerland, and then it moves on to okay, who do I know? And then what is Zach going to think about that question? What does does he have other obligations? Is it appropriate? All those questions come after you've already kind of come up with the intention to go to Switzerland. It's usually not when you're picking all the people. So my only point about this topic is if you ask me when I'm thinking about I need to send a message to a group of people, to reconsider if I should really be sending to those people, then you're derailing my train of thought to a question that I'm not prepared to associate the consequences of my actions to my desire. Like right now, my desire is to make a group and to write a message to that group as quickly as possible. And if you ask me, do you know those people? And I'm thinking, like, I got to send a message to these people, you might confuse me too early, you know? Like, I want to just write my message right now. And if I'm being blocked from core activity in the application, too far away from actually being experiencing the
Mm,
consequences, we could risk people not completing key investments in the application
the
to.
same, the same could be applied to our current process. Like once you already have your message composed and you press in send, and then like you're receiving this, oh my god, huge flow with like 4 or even 3 or whatever steps to complete before you can send an ideal message. So this could have the same effect, I guess. um, like you already thought that okay, everything is fine, I composed my message, the only thing that has left is just to press this green arrow, but it's not. And so maybe like at some point I agree that it would be like I would maybe think that okay, like if I see this large group warning at this point, if I see this like, okay, your group should be 150 recipients, but not 500, then I maybe would think that, okay, why didn't you warn me when I was creating this group, like yesterday or whatever?
Mhm.
I would, in this case, if you warned me at that point, I would create like 3 groups instead of 1 and send it. Okay, instead I did something.
I don't know. Was it the peace side?
I don't know. Maybe, yeah.
I don't know. You have more magic skills than I do. I
Yeah,
can't.
yeah. Yeah, you see.
That's an effect I don't have. Yeah. Okay. Um, yeah, I see your point. Also, like, I'm not disagreeing that we should get the user to do the behavior that we want them to do in the beginning. Um, I think my vantage point on this topic is to not get in the way of the user too much. So like once they hit 150 people, that we break off and say like, now's a good time to create another group. This is a lot of people for one group. Let's split it into 2, and then create the first group, cascade into the next one. Um, so
Something like this, because yeah, exactly about this point, this would be my thought. Like, why didn't you warn me before?
yeah,
I would like split this earlier and wouldn't get into this situation when I don't know like what I should do to recreate like everything from
I mean,
scratch. Or
uh,
so this has like a fair point.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing a warning earlier. Can we?
And yeah, Gert actually said that he would prefer to receive all those warnings before clicking send. Maybe, or not maybe all of them, but like major of those.
The problem is, like in reality, if you're writing a message and you get a pop-up warning that you did something wrong, this is really distracting when you're writing, you know? It's hard to focus when you're getting all these warnings and pop-ups, and like there's
Yeah,
too.
maybe there could be some logic like when you stopped writing, like for when you're not writing anymore, like for, I don't know, some time, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or something like this. I don't know. It's like needs to be still think through and discussed maybe, but this has some logic.
Yeah, warnings earlier are good. We agree, but it requires a lot of build out, and so even redesign potentially of many screens.
Yeah.
And so right now we were working on an advanced modal to navigate the person through problematic situations
Roger
before
and
sending.
Gert just said that this model is too complicated to complete. And if those things would be splitted in and shown before, that would be easier.
No, I disagree still because why? If you warned Jim earlier, you have too much information on the screen still. You would need a full screen interrupt while the user's doing something to warn them of something. And
for cases, yeah.
it requires a huge amount of design work still. It's not going to be any different because you still need to prepare the user that you're about to warn them about something because of a behavior they're engaged in, like picking so many people, they're about to approach some limit. Like, you can't just interrupt them without them expecting the interrupt. You know, Duolingo shows you when you're about to progress to some state. You know, you have to prepare the user that, like, you're adding 140, 150. Okay, boom. Like, hey, just before you continue, please check. So it still requires careful thought on design to not confuse Jim on all those different things.
Yeah, of course. It's not like about the less design work, but about making it easier for the user to understand what this issue is about, because it would be kind of connected to what he just did. Something like this. So he just used some spam words, and we are showing, okay, those words are not okay, consider rewriting, and you are still inside this message input, so you are still can rewrite right here, or like press this AI thing, and you don't need to go back and forth between this modal thing and like conversation thing. So it makes sense in this case as well. To me,
but
I'm not saying this is ideal, but
every word has to be then highlighted and analyzed through our function of a big dictionary of. I mean, is that performant to analyze continually?
Yeah, we discussed that briefly, very briefly. Like Roger had an idea that we can, at the upstart, potentially fetch those words, spam words from the server, and cache them in tense track, for example.
I mean, even
so,
local
like,
though. I mean, you're processing a string every character press. You know.
Not every character, but like to have some kind of
delay.
Delay, yeah. When you, for example, not writing for, I don't know, 5 seconds or something like this, we can do the check and show some highlighted. It's not so easy to highlight inside the message input. It's easier on iOS, I guess.
What about the
it's
rewrite?
not easy.
I mean, I don't know. I've never seen an app that asks for so much stuff around a text input. It's so much information. Think about like what other application asks you to do so much into a text input.
Fabi showed an example of Grammarly. Do you know the app?
Yeah.
Like this Ukrainian startup.
Grammarly, yeah.
Yeah, so they like do the checks while you're typing when you put in, I don't know, a dot maybe in the end, at the end of each sentence or something like this. So they have some kind of similar logic, but this is only about spam words, and this is one idea when it could be done instead of moving to send and then seeing that something is not correct. I don't know. Yeah. So I'm not saying this is ideal and easy to implement, but I agree that this has some logic, that maybe I would prefer to have all those warnings early as well. Before I completed some stuff. So I don't need to redo everything from scratch, but I already know that, okay, I'm doing something wrong right now.
Yeah, this is for sure. But then, how do we move forward though if we just blew up what we were working on after all the logic that we created? And
I think if
I don't think
we
any of
move,
this like addresses any of this, like the user story stuff.
I think we already have like those main issues defined. So let's say we have like 6 main potential issues that user can face regarding spam, like spam words, like not using this personalization, or like whatever, like those criteria that we have. I think if we decide to move on with the Garrett's and Trogger's logic, so the
There is
whole
no,
thing
but
should
just
be
sorry,
treated.
but there is no logic actually because they didn't think about our customer at all. They didn't think about like actually what the design must do to prevent confusion, right? Like they didn't come up with a UX. They came up with
Yeah,
uh,
sure.
a
Brilliant.
a logical point where something should occur, but
Yeah,
how it should occur is not designed and may require like a complete rewriting of those components. Like
for sure.
they may not even look at all the same anymore to do
Yeah,
it correctly. You know?
yeah. That's why I'm saying in this case, we if we decide to move on with this approach, then I think all those, let's say, 6 issues should be splitted completely to different like tasks, and we should do them one by one. For example, currently we should focus on the group size and collecting consent. We should implement that. Then we should move to spam words. We should implement that separately, and so on
Mm,
for other issues.
this is
I
more
see.
this is more complicated than this because you're talking about simply like one layer of the stack, which is the top layer. This is the latest layer. Let's say this is the spam warning layer, and this is about like how do I glue this thing onto, let's say, I don't know, for example, group creation screen. And this assumes that this is like gluable as a stack like this, and the same is true for message input. Like, but what if like this is not a stackable thing that can be just like added on top? What if this whole thing must be reconsidered all the way to the bottom of like, well, okay, not just spam warning, but what about everything else that like is required to meet the gym test, you know? Like,
Yeah, could be.
so
We don't know because we didn't think about this approach
so
in details. That's why we don't know now. But this is a question more about, do we agree that it is better for the user to receive all those warnings like separately on each step related to the concrete, like to the direct action that he is doing right now at current moment? Like if he is selecting contacts, then he is receiving a warning, okay, you are doing something wrong, there are too much contacts already, so let's do something differently, but right now while you are doing this. Or
well, no,
like the
because
same.
like prevention is the best medicine, yes, but the problem is that you, let's say during the group creation flow, must anticipate that somebody wants to make a group of 300 people, like, and the solution cannot be just to cut them off from doing what they want. You have to be ready for this case and then make a design that allows you to split the group reasonably into two groups and not make it difficult. So it's a redesign, and it requires a unique UX to execute. You can't just um, it's not just a pop-up warning, it's more than a warning, right?
Yeah, but as I said, this is about again, if we agree that this is better or not, and how much better this is. Like, if it worth investing some additional time and resources to make it better, or
I would agree with the statement that it is better to prevent a bad state earlier than to wait for it. But to prevent a bad state doesn't mean to just modify this screen. It means to redesign the screen for what the user wants to do and to support the behavior while still maintaining your needs as, let's say, not business needs, but technical legal requirements, So it's got to be fluid for the user to do what they're trying to do without blocking them and then them giving up. It's got to support something close to what they're asking for without preventing normal behavior to a huge extent.
This group size thing seems to me like one of the easiest one, I would say.
What about, how do you split it?
We can have, even for already existing, for existing groups, we can do some functionality for when you are just creating the group, we can have simple warning when you reached some amount of people inside a group. For example, if you have already 140, we can just pop up with a simple warning that recommended size is not more than 150, and consider moving to another group because of this and that. And if you already have a group, then we can pop up with a similar warning, but we should have functionality to split it, and it could be in some percentage, maybe. Do you want to split it 20% and 80%, 50-50, or something like this? And we can just create two separate groups of it, named the same, but with, I don't know, part 1 and part 2 or something like this. So this shouldn't be so complicated.
So you're suggesting segments?
It's kind of, I don't know, maybe there of course could be some edge cases for smart selected groups, for some linked groups. But yes, shouldn't be so difficult.
So a group should be segmented so that sending occurs for just a subset within the same group, because the user wants to maybe manage it all in one place, right?
No, but to make it easier, we can do just two separate groups for now, at least.
No. It's not let's make it easier. It's considering the customer. This is not appropriate to just say let's make it easy. What matters are, if you confuse Jim, your easiness from a development perspective is irrelevant. You see what I'm saying? You can't you cannot compromise the intention of the user, because if you confuse them, it doesn't matter that you made it easier for yourself. It's got to be coherent for them.
Yeah, I got it. I meant maybe the Jim wouldn't mind if I suggest to split his 200 people group into two parts, and I will do it automatically, and he will have
visually show him where to find the split. Like
We can move.
you navigate him to group A. How does he know about group B somewhere? And how does he is there a link between them?
Move back. We can move back and show those two groups will be at the top. We have highlighting functionality. We can highlight those two groups, and here we'll see that okay, there is now part one and part two in his groups list. I don't know. Maybe that's fine.
Is it?
I don't know. It's about thinking like it's not related to the current task, I guess, to decide which logic we are going to move on with.
And we have this concept of linked groups, as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but I guess only like I don't know, maybe 5% of our users understand why and how it works and
sure.
what does it mean to link one group to another.
Yeah, no doubt. Maybe the UX could be better, but um,
Even our customer support sometimes doesn't understand how and like what is going on and how it works.
right. Look, so maybe we have like on the screen a button that lets you go to the next segment. I don't know. Or over here. But
I don't know. I
Jim,
think like yeah, sorry for interrupting. I think currently it's all about deciding if this approach is better than the one that we had before.
the approach
And
can only be better if it makes logical sense to Jim. So this is not yet designed
this
at
is
all.
yeah, this is what we need to decide first before working on the design for this feature.
Yeah, but the whole thing about this conversation, why it's so destructive, is that like there's nothing wrong with saying that we can make these other screens better and acknowledging that this could be improved. But we have totally derailed all the work that we were doing to create a completely redesigned app, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. Like, and ostensibly, it's correct to do, but actually, this is not the only part. You need spam, you need prevention,
Yeah.
you need group creation flow, and you need to make it coherent to the user and help them as much as they can to get what they're looking for from the app. And so this requires a redesign. Like, you can't just like glue something on.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that we need to decide if it's worth it or not, and then move on with some approach. This one or the one that we had before. So this is the only question that we need to discuss and decide right now, I guess.
For sure, at some point it's worth doing all of it, but then it's got to be based on business objectives. Like, why are we doing this? We must figure out like where are users dropping off and how can we improve it.
Yeah,
So
that's why
the
I
orientation
was
the
to have
orientation is broken. It's uh, the group creation flow has requirements, like the requirements can adjust. Like we need to disallow certain behavior and anticipate other desires while mitigating them. And for that, we have to think about all this user stories.
yeah, that's why I was suggesting to have a meeting with like everyone else to decide which approach is the best and is it a priority and if we want to move on with this.
This is a 3-year project, to like redesign the whole app from scratch to like do everything perfectly for all use cases going into the future. Because if you work
I
on
would
this, what is the point of redesigning a screen for today when it doesn't serve any further business function for tomorrow? You know, it's like just to make it work for today. And then what if we change all the APIs and how things work, and we have a business line? And this is now like a ton of work gone into like redesigning something that doesn't consider where the business is going in 3 years, you know?
Yeah, that's why it should be discussed if it's in priority and if it worth it. That's for sure. But the current design that we made with you, like the draft design, it also requires a lot of logic change and some other stuff in terms of development, because I was thinking about it further, and it's not so easy to do this flow, like step by step issues solving, because currently, for example, we don't store the message like an object somewhere. We don't have it simply. We just pass in this like the message itself, the message body, attachments, and subject. We're just passing it through the navigation params between different screens. Like, for example, it lives only in the state inside the message input component. That's why it's a bit complicated to do this like step-by-step issues solving. So that needs some logic redesign and architecture redesign as well. So we probably should store this message object somewhere like on the top of all
Right.
those components.
Right.
So
So the problem is this. Okay, let's just focus. So, do we need to improve our spam modal? The answer is yes, because it's dropping our sales. Do we need to do a full redesign of the app? Yeah, but not like this. Not based on a spam requirement, but based on doing the whole thing better, you know? By like actually fixing design bottlenecks and architecture the whole app. So when we have to re-architect the app in general to be better, but we cannot make it reactive based on, oh, it would be better if we just did this one thing earlier. Doing one thing earlier requires redesigning that whole thing. You can't just like tear it out, you know, and just glue something on. It doesn't solve the problem. So
I'm not sure it requires like the redesigning of the whole screen, like this particular issue with group size. In my eyes, it doesn't, but
yeah,
it's just
the problem
like
is that
so.
it does because you have to make a coherent story to Jim, and just showing two groups on the home screen is not going to get him to understand the connections. It's not mapped. It's not conceptually mapped to what Jim is expecting. Nobody expects that when they create a list with 300 people or whatever, that they're going to come back and find part one and part two, and then they're going to text Phoebe like, why didn't it send to all my recipients? Like half the people didn't get it. It's like, oh, you have two groups. What the fuck? I didn't know.
Yeah, because we are suggesting to have two groups basically.
Yeah,
We are
but the user.
that your group is too large,
This is
and
way
we are
overcomplicated.
suggesting
This is
to
really overcomplicated to the user. It's not fair to them. Like they're
maybe.
not going to understand. No other group app does this behavior. You know, like where it just splits. You have to. Uh, this is difficult. It sounds simple, but it's not. It's simple technically, but complicated from a design perspective, because it's like saying that, you know, your car's too heavy, we're going to separate the passenger from the driver's seat, you know? People are going to be like, what the hell? Like, where's my passenger?
No, it's like saying your luggage is too heavy.
Right.
You need to pay for two bags instead of one.
Yeah, but they gave their bags to the counter, and they're expecting the bags to arrive at the same time, but they're not going to.
It's like two separate bags, so it could be either way. They could be lost separately somewhere, but they are not connected somehow. They are just two separate bags. So, like their company is suggesting split your luggage because it's too heavy for one and you need to pay for another one and split it into two. I don't know. This kind
Okay,
of makes
look,
sense to me.
the
This is a
point,
separate problem.
yeah, well, it's connected in that like it requires a full redesign, and this is not a simple question, and it's not a simple fix, and there's a propensity to say like, oh, it's better to do something earlier, which is true. Like that's a true statement. What's not true is that we have the capacity at this moment to redesign appropriately what is being asked of us, and that is a full project. It's a full project to do just one of those things.
I wouldn't say the current design is so much easier than splitted ones. I don't know. Like it's in my opinion. But of course,
Okay, it has
yeah,
to be
if we're
weighted.
splitting,
It has to be weighted against each other, and I don't think that this is really being considered appropriately. That the depth of design work that we spent making that modal, just a modal, it's only a modal, was like several hours of work. And
yeah, but it just needs some quite complicated changes under the hood to make it work like this.
this is
To
going
make
to require
it
infinitely more work before like it will achieve the same level of approval and moving forward that this has, because
could be, yeah.
the amount of small little details when we design this group creation flow are many. It's many issues that will come up, because if you start splitting things to a user, it has to be visually represented to them, and showing two groups on the home screen, not going to do it. It's not enough, because the intention is to send to 300 people, and you've cut it in half without the user fully understanding what's happening. And there is no amount of like highlighting that will solve that problem. The user needs to then be walked through sending to the next group and when to do it. It's based on the intentions, and so there is a lot to design here. This is not just a simple fix.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's just a simple fix, but I'm saying we need to decide if it worth it, like the more complicated changes, or it doesn't.
The goal is hopefully not to take on a year project on something that doesn't generate any revenue for us, Like this is going to be a year to fix all this stuff. In this format, if we keep doing this behavior of like, oh, I have an idea, and then that idea generates like the work, just like oh yeah, it'd be better if we do this, and then it's like it's not respecting the user stories that we have, and it's already complicated enough that needs to simplification, and we're just going to make it worse. Like, it's not okay. We have to, if we have an idea to modify something, we must fundamentally look at the architecture of what's there and how does it integrate. This is like
I agree.
three weeks of just planning to do one screen. And then once we have those 3 weeks,
I don't know if it's 3 weeks. That's why I wanted
for sure.
Roger to discuss like how much time it could take and if it's really better and if it's really worth the time and all the stuff.
They don't even have a proposal, right? Like, they rejected the idea of coming to the meeting prepared Monday with an idea of how to do it.
I wouldn't say they rejected. Maybe they just didn't fully understand what does it mean to come prepared. I don't know.
I mean, it's in the agenda. Roger said that the architecture planning requires a lot of work. It's like, yeah, of course it requires a lot of work. Like, why? It's like, it reminds me when I was learning how to code and I was building my first app, and I would be in the car with my dad, and we would be driving, and I'd be coding while sitting in the passenger seat. And he would just come over to me and say, like, you know what'd be really cool is if the app did ba 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 ba, you know? And I was like, dude, I just need the pictures to show up in the little box, you know? Like, I cannot just take on a 3 year little project that you just mentioned to me casually in the car, you know? And it doesn't make sense, I think, from what's funny to me, it doesn't make sense from a customer to engineer perspective of like why you can't just do this, you know, like just do this, you know, do this. And from an engineer to a designer, it looks the same to me because it's like functionally I can code that very quickly, split a group in half, you know, like it's easy. That's divide by two, you know, I could do that. And it's like, okay, but none of that maps to what the user wants, right? Like the user is not asking for that. And so I have to prepare the user mentally to absorb your thing. It's not just can I do it, it's how do I do it without pissing somebody off, you know? Like putting traffic lights all over the city will slow down traffic. But all the people who drive a car, when the light changes on them constantly on every single light, are going to be pissed. You can't just like drop in some idea anywhere into the app and just expect it to be working, right? It just doesn't work like that. And I think it's so just disrespectful to our customer to not really think like, okay, but how do I do this? If I'm going to like interrupt somebody's design work with another person and I have a good idea, I will propose something, but then I'm not going to just abandon that idea. I'm going to sit with you and think like, okay, how do we do this in a way that the user will really like it? When is anybody asking that question? When will the user really like it? Because like I hear the ideas, but not the solutions to actually make it connect with real human beings. It's just like what is convenient for me as the engineer who knows how to use a complex piece of software. Like how can I get it from me? But this assumes that like the other people already know your whole architecture schema, that you're going to split the group into 3 groups, you know, and that they should know how to navigate from one to the next to the next. It's like, why should they know that? Jim's not going to figure it out. Even if you told Jim, we know Jim doesn't read. Jim doesn't read anything that you put on the screen. So it's just it's gonna like it's not that it's impossible, but it is a full project, and to treat it like it's not a project,
Yeah,
it's just like a
current,
glue on.
the current thing is also a full project.
Yeah,
It
for
also
sure.
requires a lot of changes.
Absolutely.
It's not so simple as it seems to be. Because if you move from this first issue when we need to introduce the user, if you move on, for example, to let's say spam words,
Mm-hmm.
then we will have other problems like what should we do on the rewrite with AI press? Currently, we
Mm-hmm.
just move into our regular AI writer screen. So it means we are losing all this step by step thing. So we are kind of losing all this progress. We are moving back from the screen and or
Yeah.
not even back, but to some another screen. So it's complicated. We can
Mm-hmm.
design the whole new AI writing functionality just for this case because we kind of already have it. So, like, it's complicated as well.
For sure, it's complicated, but it's not as complicated to make new simple screens as it is to redesign existing screens that have complex interconnected behaviors. You know, this is like, and to create new complicated interconnected behaviors that are like very nuanced, like to split a group and expect the user to understand that is a huge user story that.
I agree, yeah, that this is maybe more complicated, like this approach with splitting.
It's infinitely
Uh,
more complicated.
this,
It's not that it's a bad idea. It's just infinitely complicated. This is
yeah, that's why we discussed. I don't know if we need another discussion with Roger and Carrot. I don't think we do. So I think at this point it should be like kind of our decision mostly yours because this is your design, like, I guess, in this case for this project. So
I mean, we have 6 questions. This is one question, is the group size.
yeah.
And this one question will turn into 6 weeks of work, which is not, not necessarily the worst thing, but there's other issues. It is such a.
Sure. Then we just need to decide that it is a good idea, but it's not worth it. So
At least not now. This is worth
yeah.
fixing. This is worth fixing as a project of fixing the app in general, but not any more than fixing the message input or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's not bad that we spent like an hour to discuss this.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, we
currently
agree. We agree that this is a better design to move this decision earlier, but then the contemplation must begin of a quick win where Jim will fully understand what the hell's going on. And that's a much more complex question when you're dividing his groups into pieces. It requires potentially a redesign of the conversation screen too. Maybe you have to group them together so that the user can understand that they're sending to segment A and do they want to send to segment B. We need to design how do we handle segmented groups that are in pieces. And this is not something we should just like throw onto the app without thinking very, very deeply about how do we want this to behave as the app grows under all conditions. You're fundamentally changing the architecture of how groups work, and it should be done with careful thought. It's important. We should do this thinking, but it's not the task. The task was to stop users from feeling like they're afraid to send messages and yet still go forward, Otherwise, we wouldn't be redesigning it if it wasn't offending our customers and making them confused and then worried to send. We already have a spam protection modal, but it's not apparently sufficient to get users to do the action which we want them to do. So that was the task. This is a redesign task, which is a good one. There's nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't like we didn't mention this together that it's better to do this earlier. I think it was somewhere here. Can we avoid future questions if we ask something here first? This was like the first point in this pyramid, was to try to get rid of the questions earlier, right?
Yeah.
So yes, that's true. We should and could ask questions earlier, but the question is, how much does it cost in development and design resources, and how much needs to be rewritten to ask earlier? Some things we might find could be done earlier easily without huge rewrites of stuff, right? But segmenting groups is a huge feature, and it deserves full design work, Like, we must have another call like this where we go through all this stuff again for this topic, for just that screen. It's not impossible, but like, why do we need this right now? Is it going to help the users a ton? I don't think so. I don't think it's like the biggest problem we have. We have a lot of problems, but this isn't the biggest. It's one of many.
Okay. Yeah, I think in like current process, because you're leading this design process and this like spam sync currently, so it should be your decision. It makes sense to me. Like,
it's not about it being my decision, but the question is, Jenya, how much time do you want to spend on each of these 6 questions to fix this issue of the spam
I don't know. I don't have some estimates right now because I didn't think about each. It requires sit and think about each problem, how it could be implemented, and then estimate some
Yeah.
time.
Well, in the future, it's better to rebuff suggestions that have not been thought about and just say like, thanks for the feedback. Um, however, like if you want to suggest feedback, it would be more useful if you explained how it works specifically and how you handle the problems. Otherwise, it's just a feature request that needs to be put in the feature request bucket because yeah, it's a great idea, but a great idea requires a great amount of design work. And this takes time to break apart this design into pieces and put it logically together. And the problem with feedback like that is that if you get a good piece of feedback, there's an idea that you can just glue it onto the existing design easily, which is almost never true. If if it feels like you can glue something on, that assumes that we were already in a modular state of mind to begin with, which I don't think that this is modular enough. You know, like we didn't build our sending flow and our group creation flow in a modular mindset. So adding modules onto like a finished structure will do the. I don't know if you've ever seen in Kyiv, but there's like a building where in the downtown, some rich guys decided that they would put a penthouse on the top floor of an existing building, and now the whole building is like leaning over, you know, because it wasn't designed for this. Um,
Could be, yeah.
we can't do that to our users. We have to be more considerate and careful.
Yeah, I didn't see that particular case, but I can imagine that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I'll have to find it and send you a photo. It's
I can imagine that it is possible in Kyiv or in Poltava. It's possible in every city.
yeah, the guy's like, I want penthouse, you know, and he just drops a penthouse on the top of an existing house, and then of course the weight of the structure isn't designed to support that, and then
It is also a big problem for those buildings that are placed like on the Dnipro hills,
yeah,
like the right bank, where there are some like elite like um, living spaces where and like where the square meters are like very expensive, and those buildings should have some limitations in heights because they otherwise, if they are too high, they are ruining like the landscape because they are looking so tall, like on the this in the green all the green bank of the river. So yeah, and all the guys that are building those things, they are trying to find some, like, you know, some options to put like an extra floor or like two extra floors just to sell more square meters. Yeah, so it
so,
was a big problem at some point.
yeah. So we should really not be those type of people on our team. That's all I'm saying. We don't need to be the people who glue stuff on. We should always consider, can the structure support it, and can the conceptual map of the user support what we're doing? Because if we break the user's conception of our app, then they will be pissed. And more than that, they just won't use it anymore because they're so confused. And so, like you cannot increase the confusion to the degree that the user will be disappointed in the results of the app. You know?
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
okay, so if we decided to move on with the current state, like the current logic,
Yeah.
so how we will uh, proceed. I was thinking on some issues. I added some stuff regarding first name, tag personalization, but yeah, it needs to be somehow finalized at some
I
point.
think on Slack they have a this view that kind of expands out from the top. You know, this kind of thing. I think considering that animation flow for the HUD is very useful. So we have it like a progress bar, but it kind of expands down, and we should build this as a component anyway that we use elsewhere in the app. So it's worth the investment. But okay, let's pause here. It was a long meeting, like 1 hour. And so it's better to breathe and to maybe revisit this soon, either later today or Monday. It's okay. Up to you.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Like, I'm currently looking into some issues that Fab sent me, but
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't find anything specific there. It's some